I'm Lydia. Until recently, my husband, Mark, and I were living with my in-laws, but we finally managed to end that arrangement. The reason the typical mother-in-law, daughter-in-law conflict, of course. It's not that my mother-in-law, Evelyn, and I always had a bad relationship. In fact, things were fairly good between us, at least in the beginning. You see, Mark is the eldest son, and he had mentioned early in our relationship that we might end up living with his parents. He was very considerate, always asking for my opinion. Well, it can't be helped, I.D. said reluctantly. But our privacy has to be respected. However, after we got married, things took a turn. My father-in-law, Arthur, fell seriously ill and was hospitalized for a long time. With no prospect of returning to work, he had to quit his job. Evelyn had been a stay-at-home wife her whole life, and Mark has a much younger brother, Daniel, who was still in college and living far away, needing financial support. So, naturally, Arthur and Evelyn's financial situation became quite difficult. When Mark discussed it with me, I knew what he was thinking. We could have just offered financial help to Evelyn, but she saw it as an opportunity. You two are planning to live with us in the future, guarantee you, she said pointedly. So why not start living together now? Our apartment lease was up for renewal, and my in-laws' house, which they'd been renting for years, was quite old. Given the circumstances, I reluctantly agreed but insisted on having separate toilets, bathrooms, and kitchens. It was crucial for privacy and because of my work. I'm a freelance illustrator, working from home. Not to brag, but I'm quite successful actually. I earn more than Mark, who works at City Hall. But with that success comes constant work, and when I was single, I often pulled all-nighters. I needed this setup to ensure enough sleep, family time, and maintain my work pace. However, it seemed Evelyn wasn't too happy about this arrangement from the start. She complained to Mark when I wasn't around. Finally, she confronted me directly. Why did you make it a two-family house? She demanded. I thought it was her wish for us to live together. It made no sense to me. Turns out, she had assumed a much more traditional living arrangement, where only the bedrooms are separate. In her mind, there was no need for two households. I, as the wife, should be doing all the household chores. It's a waste of money. She raged. 2 entrances. 2 sets of utilities. It's just extravagant. She believed a normal, large single-family house would have been more spacious and luxurious. But Arthur and Mark decided this, I.D. said, though it was my wish, they were the ones who made the final decision. Evelyn, unfortunately, firmly believes her views are common sense and doesn't accept anything contrary to her beliefs. She never even bothered to check the floor plan, assuming it would be just as she imagined, but the house was already built. There was nothing we could do about it. Yet, her anger didn't subside. This is not living together. Lydia tricked me. And she demands that I do all the household chores for both our house and hers. Excuse me, I.D. said, guarantee you a stay-at-home wife. It was a genuine question, not sarcasm, but it only added fuel to the fire. Arthur, remember, was in long-term hospital care, and she only visited him about once every 2 weeks. Why should I take care of everything, including her share, when she's not working and if finances are so tight, she could work part-time? She furiously retorted, your job is just an amateur's playtime. How dare you live off my son's earnings? It's hurtful to have your work belittled, even in an argument. Well, actually, I paid for this house with my savings, I said. Who would believe such a lie? Oh, how unfortunate that my son married such an incompetent wife. When Mark came home and I told him what happened, he just sighed. I've explained countless times that it was your savings that paid for the house. Mom just doesn't listen to anything that doesn't suit her. I'll talk to her again. But, Lydia, just ignore her, okay? Some time passed, and then, one day, my mother-in-law came over again. Lydia. I'm sorry, she said, apologizing meekly. It was a stark contrast to her previous behavior. I got a stern talking to from Mark. I just lost my temper. No, I should be the one apologizing, I replied. I was internally moved, thinking she might not be as bad as I thought, given her straightforward apology. Actually, I have a favor to ask you. It's a job. And there is proper payment for it, she continued. She said she got an illustration job for me through someone she knew, as a way to make amends. Honestly, I was swamped with work, and taking on more was tough. But, fearing it might create more friction, I reluctantly accepted it. After several days and nights of hard work, I was handed a shockingly low payment, 20. They were really pleased with it. Evelyn said cheerfully. I blame myself for not asking how much I'd be paid up front. But given the official looking order form she gave me, I expected a fair market rate. Naturally, I was quite disappointed and ended up venting to my husband when he returned from work. Something's off. I have friends at that company. I'll ask around, he said, and immediately contacted them. I'm so sorry, Lydia, he said later, his face pale. My mom pocketed the money. The company had actually paid $11,000. My husband was furious and confronted Evelyn. But she was unapologetic. What, it's just a handling fee. Besides, you guys don't support my living expenses, and Lydia doesn't do any housework, so I deserve it. My husband and I were dumbfounded. Charging a family member a fee, then at least you should be the one getting 20. And what's this about housework, Mom? Don't trouble Lydia anymore. I thought anyone caught in such wrongdoing would sever ties, but Evelyn was different. Bold, or maybe even brazen. Then, when Arthur was about to be discharged from the hospital, she demanded, as if it were the most natural thing in the world, that I take care of him. Though I work from home, I'm still working. I could help occasionally, but daily care was impossible. So, I refused. She exploded. Why can't you help with the caregiving? A wife who talks back, like Lydia, is useless. Divorce her. She continued. Even when our baby was born, she'd say things like, the baby doesn't look cute. Or, is the child really my son's? Or, don't count on me for any help. Mom. Enough is enough. I was furious, but my husband was absolutely livid. This led us to a state of Cold War. Even though we lived under the same roof, there was no interaction at all. She didn't take care of our child, let alone show any affection. For instance, when our child couldn't go to daycare because of a fever, or when I was slammed with work deadlines, she never helped, no matter how much trouble we were in. But I actually felt more at ease. It meant no inconvenience for us. In this way, 10 years flew by in a blink. Our family and Evelyn remained estranged, with our child now in 4th grade and Mark's brother, Daniel, who graduated college and was now employed, married himself. Arthur had fully recovered and started working again a few years ago. Evelyn, as usual, seemed to badmouth me in front of everyone. As a result, Arthur and Daniel's family thought I was some kind of monstrous wife. It was my sister-in-law, Daniel's wife, who had been closely observing my relationship with Evelyn, and she's quite the character. She ingratiate herself with Evelyn by joining in on the bad-mouthing. Maybe Evelyn dotes on her conspicuously, thinking it'll make me jealous. My sister-in-law, Rachel, getting along with Evelyn, got treated to meals out, received clothes and accessories, and got help with her newborn child. She even got all sorts of baby items like clothes, toys, strollers, and baby bags. And how do I know this? Because Rachel comes over to our house and boasts about it all the time. Lydia, you really don't know how to play your cards right. She say snidely. You should learn to use the situation to your advantage, or you'll lose out. After all, marrying the eldest son was your first mistake. Wouldn't it be easier, like me, married to the younger son? Well, since you live together, there's no need for us to worry about caregiving, she adds smugly. Rachel was way too overconfident. Mark had been fed up with Evelyn and Rachel for quite some time. I can't stand even seeing Mom anymore, he'd say. Let us end this cohabitation. Even though we had no interactions, we still occasionally ran into each other. Every time Evelyn saw Mark, she would urge him to divorce me. Now that Arthur had started working again and Evelyn was financially comfortable enough to lavish gifts on Rachel, the original reason for our living together was gone. There's also a land acquisition offer for road expansion. It might be a good time, he mentioned. Our house was involved in a land acquisition for road expansion. Even though we hadn't finished paying off the mortgage yet, with substantial compensation on offer, we decided to demolish the house and end the cohabitation. Mom says she wants to live with someone who isn't heartless, like us, and someone like my brother and his wife, so let them take care of her, Mark declared. Evelyn was completely unaware of Rachel's true nature. Rachel always acted sweetly in front of Daniel, convincing him that we were the bad guys and had apparently offered to take care of their poor mother. You're not like that nasty sister-in-law. You get along well with Mom, so you'll manage, he told his wife. Caught off guard, Rachel panicked. She just wanted to maintain her easy position, without revealing her true colors or being burdened with future caregiving. The next day, Rachel confronted me, almost in tears. Why does our family, being the younger son, have to live with them? You should take care of them until the end. And now you're demolishing the house. Why can't you just hand over the duplex to us? She demanded. Why? Because you're too well liked. You're smarter than me, guarantee you, I said calmly. And about the house and land, they were bought with my savings, and they're involved in the land acquisition, I explained. Liar. Mom never said anything like that. She explained, shocked. But of course, Evelyn wouldn't tell her anything that didn't suit her. Also, I continued, we've already paid a considerable amount for Arthur's hospital bills. We've kept all receipts and recorded everything in proper ledgers. So Mark and Arthur have already agreed that our duty to support them in their old age is fulfilled. It's your turn now, I added pointedly. What, you can't be serious? After the incident with Evelyn pocketing the money, Mark and I had become very cautious. Evelyn constantly sent us bills for various expenses. While we kept food costs separate, all other expenses, like utilities and neighborhood association fees, were on us. Afterward, piecing together the story from Rachel's tearful phone calls, they ended up in a living arrangement where, due to Evelyn's strong insistence and budget constraints, everything except the bedrooms was shared. Arthur and Daniel thought there wouldn't be any issues since Evelyn and Rachel got along so well. After moving in together, Evelyn demanded they cover living expenses, arguing, "We're old and don't have much time left." Just like when they lived with us, she didn't contribute to utilities. She also refused to contribute to any living expenses, including food, since they ate together. Moreover, Evelyn fell down the stairs in the new house, injuring her back and requiring care. Frustrated by her limited mobility, she began taking it out on Rachel. Suddenly, the care and financial support she thought were none of her concern became her burden. And with no help with the children and being the target of her outbursts, it was too much for her. Their relationship with Evelyn soured quickly. Daniel and Rachel argued fiercely, with him asking, "Why can't you get along with Mom?" Their marital relationship deteriorated. Arthur, who had ignored the issues between me and Evelyn, continued to turn a blind eye. However, he ended up getting injured by a plate thrown by Rachel during one of their fights. This led to a long hospital stay. Meanwhile, Daniel, struggling in his personal life, made a significant mistake at work and had to do overtime every day to resolve the issue. Their family was in the midst of collapse. Given the characters of Evelyn and Rachel, it seemed likely there would be more trouble, but it was no longer my concern. We had fulfilled our obligations, and blocked their calls. Our family is now living peacefully and happily in a condominium in the neighboring town, free from years of problems.